Good morning and welcome to everyone here in the sanctuary and on Zoom. My friends on Zoom, thank you for worshiping with us today, this morning, the fifth Sunday in Lent, which we sometimes call Passion Sunday. It begins the 2-week period from Passion Sunday to Palm Sunday to Easter Sunday. And this time is usually called the Passion Tide. So today I have the great pleasure of welcoming back our guest speaker, Mr. Kevin Foley. He's a good friend of our church and one who needs no further introduction. You've already met him many times. Welcome, Kevin. So now let's stand and sing out the call to worship, hymn number 201. Peace, wonderful peace. Hymn number 201. You may be seated, and we will now welcome Janie Marie to read our daily word. You met Janie Marie last week, our newest prayer chaplain. Janie.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. So today's daily word is inner peace. I think peace, I feel peace, I am peace. Peace lives in my heart, at the place within me where all appearances of separation dissolve. I feel only peace, only God, only oneness. This peace is always mine, part of my divine inheritance. I carry it with me through every experience, every moment of the day. Nothing can destroy nor even disturb my peace. When I invite the divine presence, the Christ of my being, to be my constant guide, a passing thought of fear, worry, or anger is a reminder to breathe, to release negative energy, to embrace peace. I feel renewed when I meditate, enjoy a walk in a peaceful garden, or take a moment to appreciate natural beauty wherever I find it. My indwelling peace manifests all around me as beauty, harmony, and bliss. The scripture is Psalm 29:11. May the Lord give strength to his people. May the Lord bless his people with peace. May all be continued to be blessed because we are blessed with inner peace.
Thank you, Janie, for that reading of our daily word. In the daily word, we read, I think peace, I feel peace, I am peace. And Ralph Waldo Emerson said, nobody can bring you peace but yourself. These statements led me to recall a question that was asked at a recent class I attended. How do you think little birds survive a hurricane, being tossed about in the swirling winds of chaos? It is thought that they learn to fall in with the wind, working with it, using stored karma, an inner source of strength. Like the bird, we can also learn to accept what's coming to us and use it as being a beneficial, spiritual, positive lesson for growth. When I think of inner peace, I picture the eye of a hurricane as the peaceful presence of God within me, shutting out all outer circumstances. The daily word tells us that we carry that peace with us and can use it as a reminder to release any negative energy that threatens our existence. We should learn to practice how to meet the trials as they come and stand unshaken in their midst by turning into divine guidance. Last week, Cruz told us about her walks in the preserve, and Reverend Charles told us of his walks in Hempstead Lake Park. And they explained how it benefited them both. Paramahansa Yogananda taught that living with inner peace is a secret to a happy life. And the Dalai Lama said, do not let the behavior of others destroy your peace of mind, your inner peace. There's so many ways for us to renew our inner peace, because at our core, like the eye of the storm, we're naturally peaceful. We can do a number of things. We can meditate, pray, listen to music, spend time in nature, exercise, garden, read, color, which has become quite a thing these days, volunteer, and you can eat mindfully. We went up to a yoga place at one time and we were taught how to eat one grape, and it lasted about half an hour, one grape. So we can learn how to eat mindfully. Do an act of kindness. Sing. Some people I know hum a tune all day. or just be silent. Just do something that brings you joy. So remember to think peace, feel peace, be peace. Share your peace with those you meet. And let us remember as we read the affirmation together. I think peace, I feel peace, I am peace. So remain seated and we'll sing the affirming hymn number 200. Peace I have most full and free. Hymn number 200.
Peace I have most full and free, peace from simply trusting thee. Joy serene I hold all sky when I follow Christ the way. Love divine including all, from the greatest to the small, and dividing that degree, then I let it shine through me. Safe from fear am I and whole, through the Christ within my soul. Rest I have in everything, when to thee I closely cling. Satisfaction full and complete fills me with the fragrant sweet. Health of body and of mind in the living Christ I find.
The lights are down. Let us relax, become still as we come apart for a while and pause for a moment of prayer. We're in the presence of God, who is infinite peace. Invite him into your heart space. Breathe in peace. Breathe out peace. Know that nothing can disturb your peace of mind because we're anchored in divine peace. We are in the presence of God. With every breath, peace is flowing through your mind and heart. And you can feel the calm peace, sweet peace, wonderful peace coming down from the Father above. Rest in the peace. God, God, God. Thank you, thank you, thank you, and amen. The lights are coming up, so let us stand and sing hymn number 198. Peace, sweet peace. 198.
That the eye cannot
And this morning, keep thinking peace, 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 and just be peace. Share with everyone. Be peace. Be peace. Be peace. There. And now we bring our good friend, Mr. Kevin Foley, to lead us forward. Thank you.
Thank you. That was beautiful. We good? Well, good morning. It's more than a pleasure to be here. I'd like to start today with a word that is overused and has lost its meaning, I believe. But within these hallowed halls, they have their true meaning. And I want to welcome all of you and say namaste. And I was a little bit frightened the other day when I was watching a commercial, and I saw a commercial selling something, and there's this young woman running by people, and as she runs by people, she goes, "Namaste." And I said to myself, oh, something else has been co-opted by capitalism. And the thing is that when we truly understand what namaste is, it's where the peace resides. It's where the light resides. And when we look at each other, I'm going to talk a little bit about pillars that I feel of inner peace. And one is self-identity. Who are we? Who's the person sitting next to you? Who's the person in front of you? And we see different forms. We see jackets and hairstyles. But when we really look at each other, do we really take the time and pause and to see that there's an inner light and an essence within each person? And when we do, we begin to, as Course on Miracles states, begin to have holy vision. It begins to connect us in our oneness. And within our oneness resides a presence and a peace and a stillness. But before I begin, I'd like to just say, start off the way I would start off. I taught for 43 years, and I always would start the semester this way. And I taught health and wellness classes and stress management classes in a college. And I say, before we begin the semester and before we begin today, every one of you know there's one little thing that you can begin to do in your life that will allow you to experience some more inner peace. And I use the word little thing. You want to start with something that you can be successful with and you can build upon, and not that there's not big decisions we all have to make. But when we begin to take small steps to begin to build and construct something, and particularly inner peace, whether it's taking a minute or two out of your busy day, whether it's when you're in a car, wherever you may be, on a shopping line, etc., pausing and begin to make a priority that you begin to connect with what's important in your life and that inner peace, that your spirituality and the way you look at yourself and others is important. Because how we see ourselves and how we see the world changes and alters and influences our behavior. Jesus mentioned in the Bible who we are. Now, it's hard to go around and express this, as I say, in King Cullen or a grocery store. But Jesus says, you are God's, we are God's. That there's a God essence in all of us. And when we look in a mirror and when we begin to reflect upon who we are, if we begin to connect truly who we are, that within us is not only a light, it's not only an essence, but it fills our being. If we begin to shift our consciousness to that more on a daily basis. And there's a lot of distractions. There's a wonderful Indian sage by the name of Krishnamurti. And he says the problem with most people in the world is we get distracted and we get lost and we begin to lose our way in terms of what's truly important to us. And I always would like to, the thing that always hit me is that as we begin to grow in our spirituality, it becomes imperative that we begin to have what I call pillars along the way to help us to connect with who we are and what life is. Not to discount or to discredit anything within the Bible or within spiritual teachings. Peace doesn't necessarily come from an external source. Peace is at the essence of who we are. It was given to us long before we came into a physical form. And when we truly begin to see they understand. Hello. You want to come up here and give a speech? And there's something that I've been noticing more and more, particularly the last 2 years in my life and in life itself. I'm beginning to think that we need to reinstitute a day of the Sabbath, where we take an extended period of time to disconnect with our busyness, to disconnect from social media, to disconnect from all the comings and goings in our life, and to begin to do the things that Mercedes mentioned, that you know, that feeds your soul and connects you to the divine within you and within life. And you hear people say this all the time. There's no time. There's too much going on in my life. I'm too stressed out. There's so much change. So again, we get lost and we miss that connection. And if we can begin to take a wonderful hour is a wonderful thing. If we could begin to take 3, 4, 5 hours where we recharge, renew, and revitalize ourselves, and how we begin to see ourselves and see the world, life would be tremendously better for everyone. So before I get into the pillars, I think there's 2 things that we must incorporate into our lives if we're going to have the spirit of peace within us on a regular basis. And the first is a commitment to yourself. And I like to read a wonderful quote from a Buddhist nun by the name of Pema Chodron, who says, "Inner peace begins the moment you choose not to allow another person or events to control your emotions." Now, in today's world, that's not a very easy thing to do. Whether it be the world, whether it be the nation, whether it be our own village, and within our own personal lives. We worry about things in general. We worry about family members. There's responsibilities. There's all different types of things that get us off kilter. But how do we begin to not only make that commitment that I will stand in the peace, as Mercedes says, in the center where peace and calm is when there's a hurricane going on. And I'm going to say in my own personal life, not always an easy thing to do. But if we have taken the time to build a highway to that place within us, it's much easier to remember and to reconnect to that peace and stillness. And the other priority is what the topic of the day was, a closer walk with thee. And in Romans 8:6, it says, to set one's mind on spirit is life and peace. And I find myself using a mantra when I walk a lot, a closer walk with thee. And I use different prayers and I use different mantras when I walk. And if I walk for an hour or 2, it helps me to center. And particularly, as Mercedes mentioned last week, Charles and someone else mentioned about how nature, which is one of my pillars, nature is a way that when you're there, you begin to immediately begin to disconnect from the outer, and something comes over most people. My father, who was a wonderful man, but he also had 6 wonderful children, and we weren't always peaceful and easy to get along with. My father had a lot of responsibilities, but he could go in his backyard for 2 or 3 hours and garden. And he loved digging in the earth. And he loved being out in nature, whether it be at the beach, and I'm going to use this, away from us for a while. And we always would kid it, he'd come back a different person. And the thing that allowed him as I got older to see, it allowed him to let all that stuff in his life go away and to begin to connect with what was important in his life. And when we begin to, and he was a deeply religious person, and he is somebody over the years, particularly the last few years, my mother passed away, and for 20 years, I got to know my father in a different light. And his spirituality was so beautiful that he allowed me to have my own spirituality. And he understood where I came from and what was important. And we could share books, we could share different things. And the beautiful thing about that is that when he passed away, there was such a peace about him. And there was such a stillness in his transition. And I lay that upon his faith, his belief, but also how he could connect to what spirituality was to him, what God was to him, what the divine was to him. And when we set our minds and hearts and behavior on spirit, on the divine, and as I teach and express in my own life, the divine is not outside. It is outside. It's between you and I. It is you, it is me, it is David, it's Vivian. If God is omnipresent, as unity teaches, which it is, it's everywhere. And as Course on Miracles express, we need to get holy vision. And the way we get holy vision is to have communion more on a regular basis with the true essence of who we are. Because another principle in unity is that we are expressions of God. We're emanations of God. As Mercedes mentioned in her talk, it's not only that we think peace, it's not only that we feel peace, but we emanate peace. Now, being someone who grew up in the late 60s, I don't want to get into vibration and energy. But there's a truth in all of that. And you know who knows that best of all? Animals and young kids. They feel people's vibrations. They know immediately, like, that's all. It's a little bit disconcerting when a baby, or you have a baby, a newborn, and you want to pass them to somebody, and the baby goes. And same thing with an animal. And all the time, right here, right now, there is an energy flow between all of us. When you get into quantum physics and you get into what's going on in spirituality these days and how science and spirituality are coming together, we're beginning to understand that, as Emerson and other people who are transcendentalists said, before I even open my mouth, you sense me. And when we are more clear without judgment, we begin to see people more clearly. When we don't have anger and resentment and anxiety and worry, we begin to see things more clearly. And how do you begin to let that flow through you rather than holding on to it? Rather than being, you hear people say, I'm so anxious, I'm this and I'm that. And we know in unity, what you profess is what you become. What you focus on, you become. And when you focus on a closer walk with thee, when you focus on being, as St. Francis would say, an instrument of peace and an instrument of light and an instrument of hope, and you carry that with you as you go through your day. I'm smiling because I had an experience this week. If you're in a relationship, sometimes called a marriage or whatever else, and you have kids and you have all different types of things, you know it can get a little strained at times and you get caught up in things. So I heard the voice in the back of my head, well, you teach all this stuff, why don't you begin to shift, you know? And as they say, the best way to learn something is to teach it. And the best way to learn something is to be an ardent student of it. And thankfully, I've learned how to unplug myself from a lot of those things. And it doesn't always work so immediately, but over time it does. But the key is to me, is to begin to remember who I am and what I want this vessel to express in the world. And as I said, when you have families and you have everything else, but to remember, when I look at Mercedes, I see God. I see Namaste. I see the light within her. Several months ago, I was taking a class, and part of our homework was at least 8 times a day when we see somebody, a stranger, an animal, or another person, see the divine light within them. Train ourselves to not only practice, but to see differently, coming from a choice and a priority. How do I want to see the world? And as I said a lot, there's a lot of clouds out there. I have 2 young granddaughters, and they're into Care Bears, seem to be back. And there's a thing called the murky dismals, and there's a lot of murky dismals out there. And sometimes when we look in the mirror, we're a murky dismal. So how do I unplug and renew and recharge? And the first real tenet is to remember who I truly am and to connect with that. The other pillar that I think is vitally important that gets overlooked, and Course on Miracles has a great saying that you cannot experience inner peace without the use of forgiveness. Learning to forgive yourself, learning to forgive another. And forgiveness is not just something, I remember I was raised a Catholic, used to go on Saturdays, forgive me, Father, for I have boop, 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 boop. 3 Our Fathers, 3 Hail Marys, be a good boy, you know? And then when I went to college, it was done in a little different way, more a personal way, where you'd sit with somebody and you talk about what sin was and all that stuff. But truly to understand what forgiveness is to release and let go of the energy that we have attached around experiences within our lives. We don't necessarily have to forget, because sometimes we do forget. But when there's heavy emotions around an incident in our lives, whether we blame ourselves or we blame others, it holds us prisoners to the past. And peace and light and love exists in the present. Present exists in the present. Our communion with presence exists in the present. And as we begin to, I used to, when I was much younger and into New Thought and lived in the city, I used to go up to 175th Street, and there was this wonderful metaphysician and preacher of the New Thought called Reverend Ike. And he had a lot of different things that he did. He was very much into abundance, but he was also a great, great metaphysician. He understood the Bible. And he would always say, there's some people you need to forget, there's some experiences you need to forget, and you need to let go of them. And the way you begin to let go of them is making it a priority to see differently, to see yourself differently, to love yourself enough that you're willing to let go of being entrapped and imprisoned in the past. And when you, in whatever manner it is, welcome the divine into your life, into your heart, into your mind, and you keep your focus more and more upon that presence, that enlivening presence, you begin to diminish the energy of past experiences. And just the simple fact of, Father, forgive them. The greatest example we have of forgiveness is Jesus. Upon the cross, he says, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. And I don't know about you, but if I was getting nailed to a cross, I don't know if I could say that. You know, some of us even have a problem when someone's nailing us for the criticism. You see? But the thing is that when we, as someone in my life used to say, you have to put your big boy pants on. And what we need to do is to take on the larger self, not the smaller self. And when we take on the larger self and begin to remember, to reconnect, one of the phrases I use a lot in my meditations is to remember, to reconnect to those experiences in your life that uplift you and connect you to the divine. And the third pillar, besides self-identity, besides forgiveness, is simplicity. Now, simplicity has gone out the wayside, but if we know about the Shakers, and the Shakers song is, "'Tis a gift to be simple." And many of Jesus's teachings are simple. Not always easy to do, but simple. One of his phrases is, "Come unto me." And many times we only begin to remember to come unto him when we're sitting in church. But we can come unto the Spirit at any time. And the more we open that door and open that highway, we begin to allow that Spirit and that energy to flow through us, to take us to that place in us and others and in life. That when we come together within a church, happens more often than other places. But we can take that experience, as Mercedes mentioned, take it out into the world. Now, I don't do this verbally, but when I'm standing in line, what I've used as a practice, besides what I said to you before, seeing the light in somebody, besides blessing somebody, is to begin to imagine that the presence of the divine is flowing through everyone, just like it is here now. Through the chair that you're sitting on, through the clothes that you have, to the body that you have, to the mind that you have. And when you're filled with Spirit and filled with presence, notice how you see and feel about yourself in life. But we need to learn how to forgive ourselves. We need to learn to forgive others. And we need to learn to understand that it sets you free when you do those things. And in every religion, and in many psychological teachings, the practice of forgiveness is a very important aspect in living life more freely and more openly. And the fourth pillar we talked about, Mercedes, I'm sitting there, we all must be on the same wavelength, is nature. Because when you take an extended period of time to walk, to sit, to listen, it changes. I'll go back to the 60s, the vibration and energy within you. You know, I always would use this example in my stress classes. If you walk along a beach by yourself for a half an hour, 40 minutes, you come back a different person. And then when you can begin to walk the beach unencumbered with emotions, that the beach, the presence within the beach and on the beach and through the beach touches something deep inside you. And then if you've had the experience of being deep in nature, where there is a stillness and a silence, and perhaps even an awe, you're overcome with a sense of gratitude. You're overcome with a sense of presence. And you're overcome with just being alive, the gift of life. And I've been blessed, thankfully, being able to travel a bit in my life, through taking off from college for 3 years and gallivanting around, much to my mother's dismay. But if you've ever been out, either in a desert or out to sea or up in the mountains and there's nobody around, and you look into the heavens and you see millions and millions and millions and millions of stars, you get your place in life. You feel your place. There's a connection. And it touches something deep inside you. I just recently, and Mercedes mentioned about Yogananda, a wonderful Indian saint, My son lives in California. I went to visit him for a week. And up in the Santa Monica Hills, there is a place called Lake Shrine that Yogananda created back in the 30s and 40s. And you come in off the highway and you go through some big doors. And as you come in and park your car and get out of your car, there is just an incredible presence in the whole place. And it's a very large place, that pond, trees, nature all around us, swans, little chapel, little gazebo on the water. But when you get out and you take a few steps, and they only allow a certain amount of people in there each day, you just feel an incredible presence of peace, an incredible presence of the divine that flows through nature, that many mystics and saints and people constantly talk to us about, of being in tune to that, what's within nature. And when we do, whether it's a blade of grass, a flower, a tree, I don't know, but there were some trees that got me through when my father was passing. I have a bunch of trees all around my house. And it'd be 1 or 2 or 3 in the morning, I'd come home from putting him to bed, or him calling me at 11 o'clock, can you please come down? And I get out of my cars and there's these trees like sentinels just standing there. So peaceful. And I would just stand in their midst for a while and begin to just allow myself to decompress. And nature is a healer. Nature guides you to where you need to go in terms of being connected to what's truly inside you. And the other tenet and principle within unity is the power of prayer and meditation. And prayer is not just when we come to church. Meditation is not just when we sit quietly for 15 or 20 minutes. But as they say, the greatest prayer, perhaps, as Mercedes said before, is thank you. And at times what I do throughout the day, and it's easier for me to do at this point in time in my life because I retired from teaching for 43 years and I have a little free time, not as much as I like. I'll mention about that in a minute. But I do a lot of walking meditation. And one of the things that I do each day, and sometimes I'll do it when I'm driving, and I ask myself, how many numbers do I want? And usually 8 or 6 comes up. And just 6 or 8 things, I'll just rattle off what I'm thankful for. And the power of gratitude, the power of refocusing, the power of sometimes allowing to linger. What we linger with is usually the negative. But when I really stop and go, thank you for that walk by the beach, and begin to connect with that, it brings me back to my center, brings me back to my core. And one of the things I do after 43 years and being retired, I got a new job. I was given a new job. I am a pre-K taxi driver, where I take my 2 grandchildren each morning to 2 different pre-Ks. And while I love them and they bring a lot of joy, it can also be a little crazy at times, forgetting this, forgetting that one. But what I do is I live near the Great South Bay, and each day when I take them, I go down to the bay, open my windows, and I have a moment of Zen where I just sit and let my ears hear the waves, begin to smell the salt, and begin to connect with the deep peace of the running wave that's there. And again, it brings me back. And what I said earlier and earlier was we need to construct things in our lives depending upon where we are and what our situation is. But we all can do one thing a little bit more or a little bit less to help us experience something more than monetary success, even more than professional success, the thing that we most desire to experience in life is inner peace. Peace with ourselves, peace with our family, and Lord knows, God knows, peace in the world. But as they say, let there be peace and let it begin with me. And in my meditations, I use this not in any one specific religious way, but Lord, let me be an instrument of peace. And let me be an instrument of light. And let me be an instrument of love. The founder of Kapala Yoga, Yogi Desai, had a wonderful saying called, love is a factory that brings peace in abundance. And particularly when we're in the presence of divine love, there is a great harmony and peace within us. And when we connect with that, not to be sacrilegious, but when we experience Holy Communion on a more regular basis, communion with the divine within us, within another, within life, it transforms the way we begin to live our lives. And that's something that all of us wouldn't be here if that wasn't a priority in our lives. So I'd just like us for a moment to just close your eyes. And as we close our eyes, just open your heart and your brain and mind, and open your being so that becomes an open channel to the divine. And slowly drift to the place that Jesus tells us is the God within. The place which reminds us of who we are at the deepest level. And call forth the peace. Call forth the presence. And call forth the light within us. And allow the still small voice within you to resonate through you. As it says, peace, be still, and know. Know the I am presence within you that expresses the truth of who we and you are. I am the presence of peace. And I am the presence of stillness. And I am always, always with you. And for a moment, open yourself, your heart, your brain, your mind, your entire being, to be filled with the divine presence of the truth of who you are and the divine presence of peace and stillness. And I would like to close today's, with your eyes closed, a quote from a Benedictine teacher of contemplative meditation by the name of John Main. If we remain still and be silent, our hearts cannot but open. The Spirit cannot but pour into our whole being. It is this that we have been created for. And receive the gift of who you are, the peace of who you are, the presence of who you are. And know, I am always in you, with you, and all around you. Now take a slightly deeper breath. hold it for the count of 1, 2, and just drop it all the way down and out. And when you feel the slow rise of the inhalation, slowly open your eyes. Come back to the room, come back to here. And not only stay in touch with the peace and stillness within you, but stay in touch with the light that is within you and the light within each other. So I thank you, I bless you, and as I started, namaste.
God is my shepherd. I want for nothing. My rest is in the pleasant meadows. He leadeth me where quiet waters flow. My fainting soul doth he restore, and guideth me in the ways of peace to glorify his name. And though in death's dark valley my steps must wander, my spirit shall not fear, for thou art by me still. Thy rod and staff are with me, and they shall comfort me. I wasn't supposed to do this, but here I am. You're welcome. And now it's time for our love offering. So if you turn to your order of service and let us recite together. Divine love through me blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. And now it's time for our announcements.
Good morning again. These are our announcements for the day, today. Our Holy Week services. Palm Sunday, which is April 10th at 11 a.m. We'll have a Palm Sunday service. Holy Thursday will be April 14th. We have communion service on Zoom at 7:30 p.m. on Good Friday, and also on Thursday. A candlelighting service is 7:30 on Zoom. Easter Sunday, April 17th, we'll have 11 a.m. service. Easter lilies are in the last Sunday for collecting is Palm Sunday, April 10th. The forms are in the NAFOX, they're $20. Events today, Kevin Foley, thank you for ministering to us today. Sunday, April 17th is birthday Sunday potluck fellowship. Please sign up to share a dish. Volunteers could help with the fellowship hour, which will be very much appreciated. Friday, April 22nd on Zoom at 11 a.m. We'll have the book discussion group. They're reading The Other Eastern by Maria Benedict. Saturday, April 23rd on Zoom at 10 a.m. we have Lessons in Truth by Emily Cady. We have Lesson 8, Spiritual Understanding. And the Lenten readings will be Keep a True Lent by Charles Fillmore, Release and Renew, and a Spiritual Practice for Lent, Unity 40 Days Mind, Fast, Soul by Michael Beckwith. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Joan. And yes, I'd like to also thank Kevin for being here today. And we'd like to wish Reverend Charles a restful vacation while he is in Cabo San Lucas. So let us move on now to the blessing of our love offering. Freely, freely I have received. Freely, freely I give. Divine love through me blesses all that I have, all that I give and receive. Thank you. Goodbye. If you're waiting for more, you're not going to get it. Okay. Okay. And now we will sing the peace song. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Let there be peace on And now we'll end our service with the prayer for protection. Together, the light of God surrounds us. I am light. The love of God enfolds us. I am love. The power of God protects us. I am power. The presence of God watches over us. I am presence. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well, for I am divine. I thank you all for being here. I ask for your forgiveness for the end of the service. We weren't amply prepared, and we trust that in the future we'll understand what more we have to do to be that way. So, everyone, have a blessed week. Thank you.